Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Uh, I hope everybody is doing well. Uh, Jazakallahu khairan, IAMLC, Sister Fatima, Ikra for getting this started and helping me get on board with this live session. My name is Maryam Khan. I am from India. I am a final year student at International Open University in the Islamic Psychology Bachelor's. I'm also working with Solace Islamic Mental Health Services as a content writer and as a research associate. And finally, I am a advanced faith-based life coach from Solace Islamic Mental Health Services. Um, I welcome you all in this session, which is work-life balance, whether it is a myth or a reality. Inshallah, we are going to decode whether this is what is the actual answer, and it will be an interesting session. However, since this is kind of a one-way session where I am not able to see you guys or listen to you, I would highly encourage that you try to use the live chat panel so that you are engaging with the session as much as you can. It will also help you protect your focus. And inshallah, towards the end, if at all there is any question, the team shall direct those questions to me. So with that short reminder, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي رب زدني علما. Uh, Starting with a conscious intention to make this time sacred for us and to give us the basira to understand what is being spoken, to give me the hikmah to say the right thing and to forgive me if I make any mistakes. Uh, some nagging reminders that a book and a pen would really help you uh, to again protect your focus and as much as you can make this space distraction free in an online world. It is extremely important. So please, this is just a small and a very important reminder. Inshallah, with that, we will begin. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So these are just something to begin with, uh, some reflective questions. Of course, I cannot see your answers, but I would highly encourage that you answer this to you. But if you have a pen and a paper, why not? Why not to write it down? I mean, and I'll just take these questions along with you. And these are all reflective questions. This session is a reflective session. So if it applies to you, you may count the number of yeses. And so to, okay. So all these reflective questions, whatever applies to you, you may just keep a track. Okay, how many yeses are there? How many no's are there? And towards the end, we would perhaps revisit this checklist again, just to make sense of why we started with this particular slide. So assuming that we all are either professionals or we were professionals or are on a break or we are uh, going to be in a professional space, or we have people whom we know who are pursuing a profession. And this term is often used with regards to being a professional, right? The work-life balance is a term that is often used in this regards. And assuming that we all come from different tangents of life and different spaces, this may apply to you, this may not. But if it applies to you, feel free to note a yes or a no, right? So, do you often feel guilty when resting and have an urge to do more work? So, I'll just read it along and you can do your thing. Have your relationships started to feel like obligations rather than sources of joy or connection? Do you frequently experience physical symptoms like headaches, fatigue, insomnia without a clear medical cause? Are your spiritual practices rushed, transactional, or sidelined by your schedule? Number fifth is, do you struggle to recall the last time you felt deeply present, not extremely distracted with yourself, your loved ones, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So feeling deeply present with yourself and your loved ones or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do you struggle with these things? Then number six is, do you say yes when you mean to say no? Or do you tend to work mentally even when you are resting? Or number seventh is, do you feel like your worth is measured by output, visibility, labels, or achievement? Number eight is, have hobbies, play, creative expression quietly disappeared from your week? Number nine is, do you find yourself emotionally numb, irritable, disconnected at the end of the day? And number 10 is your calendar full, but your heart feels tired, exhausted, or empty, as if something is still missing? So, this is just a short checklist and something that makes us ask some difficult questions to ourselves. And inshallah, you may take a screenshot if you want. You may pause the video perhaps if you want to, because it is a live. But because in the interest of time, I have to keep moving. So I will take the next slide into discussion. So when we are talking about work-life balance, and that term has been, thrown around here and there so much. And if we try to actually think, okay, what does work-life balance actually mean? Is it the balance between 9 to 5 and 5 to 9? Is it a balance between my physical, mental, social, spiritual, emotional life? Is it a balance between weekdays or weekends? Or is it a balance between professional life or personal life? Or is it a balance between occupation, family, society, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So you can keep answering, you can keep engaging. However, I'm going to answer myself as well, depending on what ever the questions I'm raising, because I cannot see your answers. And these questions and these kind of assumptions are prevailing as to what does balance actually mean? What out of these is balance? How do we comprehend and how do we understand in our own life that what does balance mean for me? And if I am feeling unbalanced, then why is that the case? So, in order to do that, it is important first to decode the terminology. And before we decode that terminology, it is important to first answer to ourselves that what each of these words mean for us. What does work mean for us? What does life mean for us? And what does balance mean for us? In common definitions, or in whenever we are talking about this, whenever we say, "Oh, okay, what does work mean for you?" So people will generally say things like, oh, something that you do for money, or something that you do to earn a living, something that you do to perhaps mm, as a profession. These are the common answers that come in. And maybe it is different for you, maybe it is the same. It can be anything, right? And when we say, okay, so what does life mean for you then? Then they'll say, okay, perhaps spending time with family, maybe going on vacations, maybe resting, maybe enjoying life, and everything other than work. So that kind of, differentiated assumptions are there, that when I am talking about work, I say everything that is okay, something I do professionally and I do for money and uh, I do to make a living. But when I'm defining what does life mean, in that nowhere normally anybody says that, okay, work. in life, there is a component that is also work. Whenever we are talking about it, this never comes. That why we do not include work when you're talking about life? Why has work been made to be like, something that we need to escape from? Or it ends on retirement, and retirement really gives us the chance to start living our life, right? And then again, when we are defining balance, like we discussed the slide before, what does it mean for us? It is something that we ought to define so that we can at least find out that if it can be balanced or we are going to struggle with it because it cannot be balanced. So with that, inshallah, we need to understand that, from where these terms are coming and why these terms have become so common, and we have accepted it as something that we must achieve. Because, okay, somebody said you should have work-life balance, and I said, okay, I should have work-life balance, but I cannot seem to have it. And now I am struggling. Now I am doing this and that and this and that, and from one trick to another trick, from one solution to another solution, and I cannot seem to grab it because somebody from somewhere told me that this balance is my responsibility and I ought to do it and I must do it, but I am struggling. And for many of us, this would be true, that we are struggling to strike that balance, that harmony. And this is why I am going to speak about that. From where we take our definitions, it matters a lot. And who is defining those definitions for us also matters a lot. And if we see, like, these statements are from some research papers that were done on this concept of work-life balance, and I have quoted them at the end in case you need it. And these papers, they talk about work-life balance as something that is a social construct. It is a notion that is constructed through social practice, which may or may not present objective reality and a discourse. Means that the society is going to define it depending on what it considers balance and what it considers work life. And each society is going to define it very differently. And as I said, that this particular, this social construct, what it is doing is it is positioning work-life balance as a matter of our own choice. And it is our responsibility to balance it with regards to establishing priorities and organizing schedules. But what it is actually doing is it is neglecting the other realities, that the structural, the cultural, the practical constraints on individuals, because we all operate in different societies. We all operate through different constraints, and we are not even the people who are deciding the policies. It is being decided by our organizations or our governments or our societal norm. So somebody who is living on in one section of the society, for him the balance is going to be very different than somebody who is living in a very different or a opposite side of the world. But when these definitions are pushed towards us, and it is said to be, it may wants us to think it as if it is a standard and it is objective reality, and we must achieve it by hook or by crook. And if we have the choice and if we have the will, then we should be able to do it. And if we are not able to do it, then it is a failure on our part, which is not correct. Which is not correct because the societies are different, and the policies that apply to each organizations are different. The genders that are operating will present different challenges. So the challenges are different. Then how can it be presented as an objective reality? It cannot be. So a growing critical literature argues that these definitions imply a false dichotomy. Dichotomy meaning something that is on opposite end of the spectrum. right? Like day and night, right? As work, paid or unpaid, is part of life rather than a separate element to be balanced with life. So when if something is uh, dichotomized or something is divided into extremes, it's like traveling in two boats and expecting to reach very far. And that is difficult. That is extremely difficult because work is supposed to be a part of life. It is not supposed to be made something that is, extremely separate. And now you start balancing yourself in two boats. And this is why it becomes so difficult for us as professionals. I hope I'm making sense. I cannot see your comments, so if I'm not making sense, perhaps you can write a question and the admin team can direct it to me. But inshallah, I hope I'm making a bit of sense. And this is the reason that something which cannot be defined objectively, something which has been dichotomized in a false way and thrown at us, and we have been made to believe that it is our choice and responsibility to balance it, and the responsibility of the organizations, of the political environment, of the global policies, of the economic policies. And these don't have any onus and any responsibility whatsoever, which is highly incorrect. And this is what these authors of Harvard Business Review write, that work-life balance is at best an elusive ideal and at worst a complete myth. An elusive ideal means something we keep chasing, like chasing a shadow, but we are not going to achieve it. And at worst, a complete myth. And again, there are, like as we discussed, there are again some points that are written by uh, Muhammad Faris in his book, and he states this very thing, that the nature of work-life balance that has been given to us, it is a myth because it is so subjective. A person who is in a different phase of life, for example, who is a mother, for them, work-life balance is going to look very different than somebody who has just passed out of a university. A person who is taking care of elder parents, for them, a balance is going to look very different than somebody who have very young and healthy parents, so to say. So it's highly subjective, and a person is going to define it also depending on the social context that he lives in. A person from an individualistic society is going to define it very differently, and a person from a collectivist society, like we have the subcontinent, they will define it very differently. So, and when we are a global world right now, when we have policies that are flowing from one end of the world to another, then how does this balance will become a reality? It is temporary. He says in the second point that it is temporary, meaning that uh, depending on which phase of life we are, it is going to change. So the balance that I strike today will be irrelevant tomorrow. And the world that we are living in, that has really proven this, that okay, the balance is as temporary as perhaps the next breath. It just disappears, not measurable objectively. There is no standard global key, tool of measurement that, okay, this is the metric, this is balance. Then the most important point is that assumes work at forefront. So work life balance, not life work balance, right? So it's something to think about. Why is it not life work? Because the corporate machinery, the capitalistic machinery, the money making machinery keeps money at the forefront. And because most of us define work as something that we do for money, so this is how our definitions are corrupted, unfortunately. And then again, it is hard to plan because how do you plan something that cannot be defined? So I hope I'm making sense. And uh, uh, if you need to take a screenshot or you need to pause, please feel free to do that, inshallah. Uh, so, once we have understood that work-life balance is something that is difficult, and not only difficult, but a myth, because of various reasons that we discussed, uh, it becomes important that we need to revise our definitions. We need to revise our definitions so that we have a new way of thinking about this particular concept. And maybe we are only able to think in a different manner. Maybe we are only able to unlearn something today. Maybe we are only able to learn one thing today. It is absolutely fine. But it is extremely important for us to at least unlearn the things that are not serving us. And definitions like these are really playing a huge part in the life of us as professionals. Uh, and it makes us feel highly deficient, and especially average people like me, uh, that, okay, where is the balance? And it is not there. Then something is absolutely missing, and I just cannot figure out what that is because I'm doing everything by the book. And so, in the effort to change these definitions, we start to first understand that, okay, that was the worldview of the secular world that was given to us in the way of work-life balance. But if we have to redefine it, what is our lens? What is our uh, filter? And that is Islam, right? Our ideology is Islam, and we ought to define each area of our lives from the lenses of Islam so that we are able to figure out that why we are struggling with what we are struggling, and we can begin the process to change that lens so that our worldview aligns with Islamic worldview. So, in order to do that, and in order to understand the concept of balance in Islam, we need to understand what are our mandated roles, what are our elective roles, and what is the minimum performance level, which is the MPL in each of these roles. So, mandated roles is a role which in life which your ideology doesn't permit you to drop under any condition. So it doesn't permit you to drop under any condition. Means these cannot be dropped irrespective of what happens. And these are given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to us. These are roles that we do not choose. These are our primary roles, right? Similarly, we have elective roles. Now, a role in life which your ideology permits you to drop under certain conditions. So you have the volition, you have the choice to choose these roles, and you may drop them as and when there is a requirement, as and when there is a demand from your life that you may let go, right? And then minimum performance level is our performance in any of our roles, mandated or elective, which should not fall. I mean, our performance in any of our roles, mandated or elective, must not fall below the MPLs as dictated by Islam. And this is the minimum performance that we must have in each of our roles. And this particular MPLs are defined to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because he wants us to not fall below it, right? So I hope these definitions are clear. I'll ask you to just take a couple of minutes to list down what are your roles, because it's going to differ for each person. What are your mandatory roles? What are your elective roles? And you may also think on the fact that, am I meeting the minimum performance in each of these roles? Right? You may take a couple of minutes to do that. Mandated roles could be a slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, uh, being a son, a daughter, mother, father, brother, sister. So the roles that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen for us, and elective roles could be anything that you have chosen. It can be being an employee, being a professional, being a volunteer, being a friend, being something more, anything. It may apply to you. And then to think whether we are meeting this minimum performance level in each of our roles. And maybe somebody is thinking, okay, how do I understand what is the minimum performance level in my role? So this is given to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there is a book named as The Ideal Muslim and The Ideal Muslimah by Muhammad Ali al-Hashmi, if anybody is interested to refer to if they want to actually understand that what is the actual requirement of each of the roles that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me. Okay. Now, some of us, maybe we have mandated roles and elected roles both. Maybe we are meeting minimum performance level in some of the roles. Maybe we are performing much more than the minimum performance in some other role. And maybe there is a possibility, maybe that we are below the minimum performance level. And if that is happening, then there could be a problem. Because minimum performance level, if we come below that, it is going to be injustice. It is going to be zulm. If I'm doing more than minimum performance, it is going to be ihsan. It is going to be excellence. And if I'm on the minimum performance, it is going to be justice. It is going to be adl. But the riskier part is, and the tricky part is that is there a possibility that I am not meeting the minimum performance level in any of the role? And more importantly and more crucial is that role a mandated role? And for us as professionals, perhaps this is a very hard reality that there is a high chance that for, for many of us, maybe one of those roles in which minimum performance level is not getting met is a mandated role. And that is why it is important to ask ourselves some hard questions that why is this happening? Why is my minimum performance level in a mandated role, in a role that was given to me by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is taking a hit? And in order to understand this, we will just revisit the ayah of Surah Rahman. And the heaven he raised and imposed the balance that you not transgress within the balance, the mizan, and establish weight and justice, and do not make deficient the balance. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the balance and the mizan. And of course, we as humans will never be in a state of perfect balance, right? We are going to be in a state of struggle. But having any of the role below the minimum performance level is a sign of injustice or zulm or transgression, so to say. And that is very, very risky. And that is why we need to ask that what is the reason? What is the reason that this is happening? And two most important reasons for that is that we are defining our minimum performance level not from the Sharia, not from the definition that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. We are defining it from our personal desires, from our social expectations, and the social expectations. And the another reason is that we are falling below the MPL in a certain role and we perform exceptionally well in another role and we call it sacrifice, right? So Just for example, uh, I am, let's say, working, and I am working so hard that I'm even neglecting my own self. And I am not even paying attention to anything else in my life that deserves my attention, whether it is family, whether it is my own health. And I am saying that, okay, but I am earning for whom? And I am doing all this and I'm neglecting everyone and everything is because I'm sacrificing it so much for you. And if I don't do that, how I am going to earn? Because we live in a world that defines everything from the metric of capital and money. So it can potentially happen that just the way our work life balance definition was defined by the society for us, which was not correct, our MPLs are also being driven from these societal expectations or our personal desires. And we have made ourselves to believe that this is okay, this is fine. As long as it is money making, it is fine. So the reflection number one is that what maybe these are very difficult reflections, and I can understand that, but maybe you can note it, perhaps do it later, or if you want to do now, you may. But these are difficult, right? So the first reflection is what is deceiving me into believing that my elective roles or the roles that I choose are my mandatory roles or vice versa. What is deceiving me into believing the same? Is it the global ideology? Is it my self esteem? You remember the question that was there in the first slide, that attaching my worth to my achievements? Is it coming from conditioning? So, is it coming from our upbringing where we have been made to believe that the only role that matters is that gives money? Maybe the culture, maybe something else. Maybe it is different for everybody. Uh, I had this, I can perhaps share this. I had this client who was struggling with work life balance a lot, right? And she came and she said, okay, I cannot balance it. I cannot balance it. And this and that. She was crying and uh, everything, And through our discussion, she said that I came to be working in this profession because I used to watch dramas in which a boss lady was glorified. And I came from a home where respect was only given to people who were making money. So I eventually she developed that reflection. She came with that reflection herself. She said, eventually, I said that I will become this same person who is a boss lady and who is making money so that I get the respect that I never got. And the entire issue was not work life balance, it was a self esteem issue that was prevailing, and it was manifesting as work life balance, but that was not true. So this is just a short example that came to my mind. And reflection number two is, in what roles and in what ways am I not meeting the minimum performance level? This could be again different for each of us. This could be different depending on what we consider as MPL. And that is why it is essential for us to define our MPLs from the lens of Islam. This is essential for us to understand what is the ideology that Islam speaks about. And it is definitely going to be 180-degree opposite to what we are used to. But the lenses need to fall. The lenses need to fall. So I hope I'm making sense. I hope the reflections are making sense. Um, and if you want a couple of minutes, maybe you can take it. So this is what we were talking, right? That if my performance is greater than the minimum performance level, I am in a state of excellence. If it is lesser, then I am doing zulm. And if it is equal, then I am doing justice. But the crux of it is that our performance in one role of our life should not be at the cost of another role of our lives. But the chances of that happening could be very high if these two reasons, driving MPLs from personal desires and societal expectations, and this particular point, and the answers that you come in these two reflections, and the answers that come after you have reflected, will possibly tell you that if this is true for you or not. If this is a mistake that is happening perhaps subconsciously. Maybe you don't intend to, but maybe inshallah, after today's reflection, maybe that door opens where you are able to think about your roles differently. Inshallah. So it when we like initially when we started, we spoke about the definition that we have heard. Then we came to understand, okay, what is the definition that is Islam giving? It is of mandatory roles and elected roles and minimum performance levels. But again, uh, we have to, if work-life balance is a myth, then we need a new terminology for the balance. And this terminology Muhammad Faris again talks about, that is the haq balance. Haq balance is expectation versus right. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to fulfill the rights that each person has on us. So for example, my parents have some rights over me. Then I am obligated towards my brother. Then I am obligated towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then I am obligated towards my neighbors. I am obligated towards the society. So these rights are defined. These obligations have been defined. But when we are driving our minimum performance level by the societal standards, our focus is not on these particular obligations. Our focus becomes the expectations. And expectations by nature never end. So, what the society expects out of me, I am chasing that. And I am chasing the expectations of anybody else that they have put upon me, whether it is through conditioning, whether it is through upbringing, whether it is through the digital media consumption that we have taken, whether it is the constant comparison that is happening on different platforms. But the haq balance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us is that we ought to fulfill the rights that even our own body, towards our own body, right? Our own selves, towards our families, towards every other person. And once we have done that, then the balance will be striked. Of course, it is going to be a journey, but our definitions should not come from a state of expectations, because expectation by nature is not something that ends. And until and unless we are crystal clear about what obligations each of the people, or uh, anything else for that matter, has, it will be very difficult to uh, leave the secular definition of balance and come towards the Islamic definition of balance, right? So I think this was the crux of the session. Uh, uh, but just another example that comes to mind, and just on a side note, that uh, the society expects me that I need to get promotions every 2 years or every 3 years. And my life is telling me that if I take this promotion, I am going to do injustice on my body and I am going to do injustice with my family, because right now I am working for 10 hours. If I take this promotion, I will be possibly working for nothing less than 14 hours, and which will obviously mean that I have to take 4 hours out of either my own self, or that work that I do for the society, or the time that I give to my family, or anything else. But the society does not like people who will say no to promotions. At least I have never seen anybody who has said, because the label the label under our name in our organizations matters so much, that if somebody who has joined the organization with me and after 2 years she has been promoted to manager, and I took a demotion and I said no, I need to focus on my life, I would see that she has been promoted. The people around me are going to see that she has been promoted and I have been not, and it will become a question of my worth, because unfortunately a lot of these things have been attached to our worth. Okay, they joined together. Why did she not get the promotion? Or is she not a good worker? Or maybe she's not very average. And then I start to assume that people look at me in a very bad way, and then I end up maybe not performing in my role as nicely. And then actually, my performance goes down, and I'm actually not promoted again. So it becomes a vicious cycle again. But how many of us have the courage to actually understand and say that no, my huck balance is going to be twisted with this particular promotion, and I don't intend to take it. I don't intend to have that burden upon me. Maybe many of us have done that, and alhamdulillah if we have. But for those who are struggling, for those who are struggling, and for those who are able to connect with these this particular conversations with regards to, how do we say no even when we know that it is going to be harsh upon ourselves? There's something to think about. And this is uh, the main point of reflection for today's session. Now we have discussed the problem, we have discussed the paradigm shift, the worldview shift, the definition shift, and now maybe somebody is wondering, okay, what is the answer? But even if you don't get the answers today, it is fine. We ought to not get all the answers too quickly. I think we need to learn to be very uncomfortable with the questions for a very long time, so that when the answers come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it makes absolute sense. But again, this particular solutions I have learned from Sister Bela Khan, and I have also like written it in the reference section, that when she was teaching about work-life balance, she just spoke about this phase-wise focus, and I'm going to reiterate that because I loved that particular concept. That how to actually then, maybe a lot of females are listening to this lecture. Maybe they will listen to this lecture, and they might relate to this more, because work-life balance, when we talk about that particular term, becomes more what do we say, chest constructing, because we know that females have gender roles, and no doubt they have responsibilities, and for them managing two boats or traveling in two boats is, it's beyond imagination, but still we are doing it somehow. And it is making us very unhappy, and there is no doubt that there are going to be people, this is a disclaimer, that there, not everybody has the luxury to focus on their own phase of life, in whichever phase they are, and give up everything else, and give up money. And no, that is impractical. Some people actually have need of earning, and they ought to earn, they ought to make a living. And this is something that we need to answer for our own selves, that uh, our engagement in a particular phase of life, and what it demands from me, what the natural fitrah demands from me. For example, if I am a mother, or if I'm a father, and I this particular phase of my life demands that I give more time to the mandated role of mothering or fathering. And for example, for mothers, one person has to go out and earn. So let's say the father is going out and earning. So one person has to be with the child to take care of them. Otherwise, who else will? And at that time, if my MPL, or my minimum performance level, was defined by the society as, oh my God, so are you going to give up your profession? Oh, so you're going to do nothing. Oh, so you're going to waste your degree. Oh, so you're going to just take care of your child. Oh, and these kind of statements which we often hear, and oh, you're going to um be just a mother. So, as if just a mother is a term. So, these kind of statements that are pushed against us, not to forget the global ideologies that are being pushed towards us, it becomes more difficult for us as females, I guess, uh, uh, to make sense and to give up the things that we have been made to attach our worth to. So, it's hard, and I have gone through it, and I cannot even begin to explain that if anybody is going through it, I relate to you the most. And so each phase demands different responsibilities. Our fitra, natural focus is going to be different. And then we ought to do that. We ought to do that. And inshallah, once we do that, and once we give the focus that our fitra demands, then inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to make ways from us from unimaginable sources. And all our fears that has been pushed into us by the society will disappear, because then we will be keeping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the forefront and our own desires at the back and the societal expectations at the back and the global ideologies at the back, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be the metric, and then he will create ways. He will create ways, and this is going to be extremely hard, uh, because it is rare. It is rare. So, just a few things. If somebody is really in a mood to do some writing and wants to really reflect, then this is some couple of steps that you can take yourself through in order to have a deeper reflection about everything that we have discussed. So, how do you spend most of your day right now? Which role drains your energy the most? What gives you energy even when tired? And which of these do you feel most guilty neglecting? So, this will again help us to understand that, am I giving my maximum time to a role that is draining myself? And if that role is an elective role, it is something that then I can actually give up, then what is the reason that I'm holding to it? What is the reason? Let's assume that there is no absolutely dire survival reasons for it. Then why I am holding on to it and not letting it go? Even take why I'm not allowing myself to even pause, why I'm feeling guilty when I take rest. And let's suppose you are a mother and you are doing one of the toughest job in the world, but there is still, you are doing what you can the best. But let's say you still have something in your heart that you want to give time to. Then there could be something, right? There could be something that makes you energized. So the question is, what is that thing, and how can you make ways to incorporate more of it in your day? Maybe an hour, maybe half an hour. And if you have that kind of time, let's say an hour or half an hour, and you are still not doing what your heart is connected to, then what is the reason? And again, I mean, these are some tough reflections, but inshallah, the answers is gonna come. And then again, am I neglecting any of these roles? And if yes, then why? Then again, after that particular reflection, we can select in which phase of life we are, and accordingly, our roles are going to be different depending on the phase of life we are. Uh, it is extremely important, especially if brothers are listening, that the previous time I was taking this session, there was a lot of comments from the brothers who were saying that, but we ought to earn, but we ought to earn. I said, of course you ought to earn. You are a providers of the family, and that is an extremely difficult job, extremely difficult job. But also remember that that is not the only role. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not make that your only role, that there are other roles present for you. And because we live in a society where the worth of a man has been attached to his capacity to earn, and if he does not earn, some his worth is multiplied by zero. Unfortunately, we have this incorrect belief system where we think that, okay, work life balance, if we have to strike, okay, somehow I need to just stop earning. But no, that is a very extreme thinking, and that is not correct. It's just to identify what we learned, right? The minimum performance level. Am I coming down in any of it? What are my other mandatory roles? Am I reaching the minimum performance in it? Just a simple reflection, not a simple one, but yeah, just a reflection, and inshallah. And then finally, uh, mandatory roles cannot wait for me to be free. I cannot do my parenting when I am free. I cannot do my connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when I am old and retired. If this is neglected, I can be sinful, right? And elective roles, on the other hand, they can wait for me. And it can be pursued when I have space, or can be pursued in accordance to the degree of space I have. And I need not exhaust myself to a degree in my elective roles wherein my mandatory roles gets compromised and sacrificed and suffer, which is actually a transgression. I know this is a little heavy, and I have tried to simplify it. So the final reflection is that, is my heart and my energy aligned with my phase of life? And now, again, the first checklist that we have gone through, right? I'll just take you back. If we go through this again, we now need to answer that how many of these symptoms, so to say, if that is the right word, is happening because I have placed elective roles above the mandatory roles. How many of these are yes for me? Because subconsciously, maybe, I have placed elective roles over and above my mandatory roles. Maybe do this checklist one more time to see if that is true. And if that is the case, then it is a time to unlearn and relearn. Finally, as I said, that the definitions that we have been given is ask us to hustle and to get it all, and nothing is impossible for you as long as you are committed. And but that is not true. That is incorrect. We are humans. We have limits. But these kind of labels and statements make us feel as if, okay, there are no limits to us, and we ought to hustle and get it all and climb the corporate ladder, or maybe don't stop. Silicon Valley is burn yourself for 15 years and then retire at 40. I mean, what? I was reading this today somewhere, I think. That, uh, how does that make sense from the Islamic worldview? It does not. So the true balance is doing the right thing in the right season or our phase of life. The secular West teaches us hustle, but Islam teaches us hikmah, which leads to barakah. So when we place mandated roles in its correct place, and when we uh, choose our roles, or so to say, give the focus to our natural fitra roles as much as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to, and we do not place elective roles over and above mandated roles, then He will give us the hikmah and the barakah, and He will open doors for us so that we are, inshallah, able to do whatever we thought that we want to do once we are free. The doors will be opened. If you prioritize one role over another, you are not behind, you are ahead of yourself in that phase. Life is not a race, it is a test. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward intentions and efforts and not output or results. So if we have attached our worth to outputs and achievements and labels and income, so to say, then it's time to revisit our definitions and it's time to perhaps unlearn a few. With that, وآخر الدعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. I hope this made sense. I hope this was beneficial. Uh, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept it from myself and accept it from all of us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the basira to apply what we have learned and inshallah make both our dunya and akhirah better. And may He keep us steadfast on the right path and protect us from anything that will not be of benefit for us in this world or the next. Ameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. If at all you have any questions, you may shoot and I'll stay back to answer. And if you don't have, very nice. I think I explained very nicely then. Just kidding. Okay. Jazakallah khairan.